So today we're going to talk about what it takes to attract a real high quality man. And I'm really excited to have a dear friend of mine in the house, Catherine Woodward Thomas. Catherine wrote the book, Calling in the One. Everybody, I just want you to see this. And by the way, if you want to get a copy of it, click the link below. She's a marriage and family therapist. She's written another book called Conscious Uncoupling. In fact, we recently did a video on that. We talked about the ending of my relationship. And today we're going to talk about what it takes to attract a love in our lives, soulmate. And I'm going to be part of this journey as well, because I'm basically back in the single marketplace. So welcome, Catherine.
Thank you, Jonathan. What a joy to be here for part 2 of the conversation. Now that
Yeah,
we're
well, it's kind of
coupling, we're open to new love.
Well, it's interesting. I did a post today in my Instagram, and I talked about the quality of a relationship isn't predicated by the amount of time or going the distance with someone. It's really about the healing and the growth that can come out of a relationship. And for those that, a lot of times are in a state of fear, and this piggybacks on our last conversation, I want to show that there's hope to attracting, that go the distance partner, if that does exist. And I was hoping that today we can kind of pick the nooks and crannies of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think there's, I've been lately pondering the idea of the difference between dating and attracting. And particularly because our dating marketplace has been consumed with things of swiping and such and internet. I think many people are spending way too much time in the weeds and not really at the higher stage of attracting love in our life. So maybe we could talk about that to get our conversation started.
I think that's a great place to start, because I've heard from so many people that it's a lot of work to do sorting, right? Kind of trying to find that needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
And I think what we're talking about today is, how do I become magnetic so that, that I just draw that person in, the right person for me. I'm not constantly sorting through all the people who are not right. And I think that, the conversation of this high quality man for a high quality relationship has to begin with us. It has to begin with us, because first of all relationships are a spectrum of possibilities, right? Every relationship has its potential for toxicity, and it also has potential for elevation.
Okay.
The higher dimensions of love, where true love really can show up, where you get to have boundaries, where you get to make mistakes, where you get to be who you really are, but somehow the field in the relationship inspires you to really strive to be the best person that you can be, and to do in life, right? That's what we're all really hungry for.
Yeah.
So, all of us here, I'm going to just assume that everybody here who's listening to you is a pretty high quality person, because you're a pretty high quality man.
Well, thank you. And the fact that I use this term, I'll be candid with everyone watching. It's a little bit of, for search engine optimization purposes, but I don't necessarily like to grade people based on quality. But at the same time, I do believe that there are humans that are suffering on the inside, makes it difficult for them to be in relationship. And then there are people that are more empowered in their lives, and they make better partners in relationship. And to some degree, that's what I mean by the word quality. Dating, what's interesting, I want to share with you an idea I had the other day. I was thinking about particularly the way our current dating marketplace is, where there's swiping and it's internet based, and it's almost like telemarketing. It's almost like, like I used to be in sales, and I would be given a list of 100 names, and I just call one after the other, after the other, after another. And that really generated poor results. Versus when I got out and did networking, when I went out and played golf with business people, when I started to do things like that, I generated better leads when I was in sales. Those are what we called warm leads. And I'm liking the dating process today is, what can we do to create, warmer leads? What can we do to attract someone in rather than this dialing for dollars kind of methodology that we're currently involved in?
That's a great way to put it, dialing for dollars. So I agree with you. Everyone has inherent value.
Yeah.
I think if we even approach the, dialing for dollars dating scene, we want to bring that everyone has value. Even if people are mistreating us because it's a meat market out there, we
Yeah.
don't want to be a part of that. So, if you want to attract in love, you have to start by being actually interested in being a loving person. Let's start there.
Okay.
So be loving wherever you are. Be respectful, be kind, be generous as you can, and have good boundaries. And
Yeah.
also, don't get your fantasies all caught up in the dating for dollars scene, because we have a lot of projections. All of our hopes and dreams kind of get pinned on. We like that particular picture, that particular
Yeah.
profile. So without knowing who that person is. But so let's get, definitely. So high quality. I'm just going to define high quality.
Okay.
High quality is a man who has the capacity to commit, is
Mm.
willing to commit,
Yes.
who has good character, who
Yes.
treats people well. He aspires to have integrity in his business dealings, in his family relationships. He shows up with people, as an honorable person. And he has the capacity to create trust, because love
Mm.
is unconditional, but relationships are not.
Mm.
Relationships depend on trust.
Yeah.
Trust depends on you keep your word, you show up, you're accountable, you can self-reflect on yourself as the source of the breakdown. You can, you can hear feedback, you can respond well, you can be in ownership of your flaws. So it's somebody who has that capacity. Now, they either have the capacity because they were raised in a really loving family, so they understand what it takes to actually create safety and love,
Okay.
and or
Okay.
they've done a lot of work on themselves. They've really, they've read the books, they've sat on the cushion in the couch for a long time. They've got seminars. And when you ask them, so what went wrong in your last relationship, they're going to tell you more about themselves than about the other person.
Yeah. So, okay. So I reflect on this for a moment because, well, I grew up fairly middle class, and to some degree, I definitely had some childhood wounds and traumas in a variety of different ways. But thankfully, I didn't have an extreme case of trauma or abuse or neglect or that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And I recognized that I needed to do work on myself. And I've been on a journey, a real soul searching journey for well over a decade to really become kind of the best person I can be. Um, and it starts with everything you just shared. I did a video about character and actions consistently matching their words, and genuinely wanting commitment, and trust is paramount in their relationship. And I listed literally everything you just shared. So no matter whoever's watching this, no matter where you're out in the spectrum, I do believe we have a capacity to call in a really fantastic life partner in our lives. In fact, everybody, really quickly, I just want to say something. Catherine's going to be hosting an event very soon. I'm actually attending this event. It's a virtual event called Calling in the One. There will be a link below in the show notes. There'll be a link in the comments section as well. If you want to attend this, I highly recommend it. I'll be attending this. So today, Catherine, I thought maybe we could talk about kind of what's going to be happening in this course over the next, is it 8 weeks?
Yes, it's an 8-week course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and I was just looking at the chapters myself, are you open to going through it little by little with everyone?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So let's start with the first week, preparing, because I think this conversation so fits into the idea of attracting and not the dialing for dollars. Okay.
Well, and by the way, I met my partner Michael online,
Okay.
but he's the only person that I met on that. When I met
Oh,
online, I met one
okay.
person. It was Michael. and he's
Yeah.
amazing. Like, you know, so that's what we're talking about. How do you initiate magic into the process,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, we don't have we don't have our parents arranging our matches anymore. And we're not back where our grandparents had like 4 people to choose from because
Yeah.
that's all single people in their town.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I think that, you know, we have to recognize that the kind of wealth of choices that we have really can paralyze us.
Hmm.
So we have to initiate a little bit of magic.
Okay.
You can set a goal to get a PhD or to buy a house or get a great job, but you can't really set a goal for true love. You have to rely
Hmm.
on magic. You have to rely on that kind of intangible synchronicity, all those stuff that we call beshert. You know, what is that when you meet somebody and, you know, like when Michael and I met, you know, I happened to say, I just said to my daughter, out of like, how many songs are there in the lexicon? Millions?
Yeah.
2 days before, I just said to my daughter, you know what my favorite song is My Sweet Lord. You
Okay.
know, right? Old song,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Old song. And, I'm talking to Michael, I'm just getting to know him. We hadn't even met in person yet. And he mentions, "My favorite song is My Sweet Lord." You know, it's that kind of beshert, those is kind of synchronicities and signs.
Mm.
So that's what we're really wanting to initiate here. So that's what we're teaching in the class is how to awaken that and become magnetic to the person that who's really right for you.
Well,
Get you
some people are going to consider that woo woo. Magic is, that's ridiculous. That's so illogical. But I don't believe that to be true.
well, I mean, it's just kind of in our lexicon that you get these kind of synchronicities and
Yeah.
signs when it's somebody important. Have you ever had that experience yourself?
You know, it's interesting because to some degree, I felt that in my most recent relationship. But oh, so let me share something with you. So, and I might have mentioned this before. When we first connected, I felt a disconnect between the two of us. And but at the same time, I had there was this weird curiosity. I am meant to meet this person. I really had this strong sense I'm meant to meet this person. And when I met her, we hit it off. And to some degree, I look back and I go, okay, well, now I can see where maybe there was some misalignment between the two of us. But at the same time, Catherine, I want to say something. This relationship was probably the healthiest relationship I've ever experienced. It's a relationship where I went all in. I showed up in ways I never had before.
Yeah.
And she's really a beautiful human being. We're in, I almost want to say it's a timing thing or something else that's a misalignment. But I knew there was something about her that I couldn't put my finger on. And now looking back, I know this relationship wasn't meant to go the distance. This relationship was meant to offer a deeper healing and by the way, and I think she would openly admit she healed tremendously in our relationship because I know I did.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I love that you're valuing the relationship according to the growth that was gained in that relationship,
Yeah.
not necessarily because it lasted a lifetime, which is, you know, the kind of the fantasy that all of us are holding ourselves and each other accountable to. And you're part of busting up that narrative that somehow it has to last a lifetime in order to be
Well, you
real.
said something in our last video, and I apologize for interrupting. You talked about serial monogamy, and it really struck me how, we have this old paradigm that, my parent, by the way, my parents were married 66 years before my mother passed away, and my girlfriend's parents were the same way. Um, it's okay to have several relationships in our lives. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, you know, and what we said last time, just for those who didn't watch that particular video, is that the happily ever after myth was created when the lifespan was less than 40 years of age. And there wasn't any mobility in life. You were kind of born into one area and that's the area you were going to stay in for the most part. That was it. So your options were pretty narrow in life as
And
well.
in your particular case, you met somebody, you got married, you had a child, and the relationship didn't work out. And do you mind sharing at what age did you meet your current beloved?
Current partner, oh gosh, I was 61.
Yeah, you're 61. So it's like there's this,
Yeah.
you fit that Golden Bachelorette category.
I know. I watched that show this week. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I'm analyzing it quite a bit. Well, you know what? By the way, 68, the fastest growing single demographic is going to be 60-year-olds.
I'm not
Mid,
well, gray divorce is the
yeah,
fastest category of divorce, people who are
yeah,
divorcing after, long-term marriages and that feel, that they can be complete. It's not a contentious, hostile divorce. Maybe they raised children together, they did a business together,
yeah.
and now they're on to the next thing. This really started in the 60s, by the way, with the pill.
Yes, the pill. Yes.
Hormone treatment and Viagra, and
Yeah.
we're like, "All right, I'm 80, I'm getting a makeover, get me, to the lingerie store." So for my 80th birthday, because I'm gonna go out and find me a new lover. I think Louise Hay, modeled that for us so beautifully.
Okay.
Okay, so but I'm just saying our expectations have really radically changed, thank goodness. And we're not just ready to hang it up at the age of 60. We're ready to then do the next part of our life in a really vibrant way.
Yeah.
So how do we attract in a high quality man? Just to kind of, because we're moseying.
Yeah. So let's start with the first week of preparing for love. Like, do you mind giving us a little insight into the first week of the course you're going to be doing?
No, the first week of the course actually begins with the future, because most of us, when we're working on our relationship issues, want to go back
Okay.
into our past. We look at our parents' marriage, we look at our relationships with our older siblings or with our early caregivers, and we are going to find generally most of us will find some wounds there, some of us severe traumas, some very
Yeah.
severe of some kind of abuse or neglect, which is a very high form of abuse. And so there's things to do, there's things to heal. But I have discovered that we have kind of a myth inside of psychotherapy. And I'm a therapist, so I've been around the block for a while and
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of people. But I think there's this myth that if I understand my past enough and I understand why I am the way that I am, why my patterns are the way they are, where they come from, what happened, when, with who, why it happened, that somehow it's going to liberate me to do it differently, kind of
Yeah.
organically moving forward. And occasionally that will happen. It's not that it never happens, but when it comes to love, these patterns tend to be very primitive and very deep and very
Okay.
ingrained. So I say, let's start with the future. Let's start with the future of what it is that you're committed to creating and
Hmm.
set an intention. Because the moment somebody sets an intention for love, it's different than having a goal. It's different than wanting love. It's different than hoping for love.
Okay.
Because, if you want something, you hope for something, the fulfillment of that really is outside of you. You might pray for it. You might even put it on a vision board. But really, if you're going to set an intention, what an intention does, like I'm going to be engaged by my 42nd birthday, which is the
Yeah.
intention I set that started the whole calling in the one process, 20 something years ago with my first husband, who
Okay.
is still a dear friend of mine, who I did have my daughter with.
Yeah.
But I started with that intention. And what that does is when you set kind of an unreasonable intention for a future that does not look likely at
Yeah.
all, particularly given that you've been trying to do this for a while. The game is not to run out and make that happen. The game becomes to become who you would need to be in order for that to manifest and then to be able to sustain it.
Yeah.
So it begins to pull you into the development, all the ways you're going to need to grow. When we have
Hmm.
traumas in the past, why it doesn't work just to go through your old trauma to try
Okay.
and just heal enough so that you can have love is because when you were traumatized, you actually stopped developing certain skills, or you never had the chance to develop certain skills. Let's say you had a narcissistic parent. So you kind of breathed it into your soul that you're invisible, that no one really cares about your feelings and needs. And then inside of that consciousness, which you learned when you were 2, and,
Yeah.
it was kinda true in that home, not because the other person didn't want to love you, maybe they just didn't have the capacity
Yeah.
to do that, to care about your feelings and needs separate from their own, but you never actually learned how to present yourself, how to ask for what
Mm.
you want, how to ask for what you need, so that becomes developmental. So if you then set an intention, you've got a pattern and you always seem to wind up with narcissists. And then,
Yeah.
it's, oh, I've dated my mother again and it's going to
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Really what's happening is, you're kind of missing the capacity to presence yourself and to ask for what you want and need in the recognition that the other person actually cares. So what basically happens is if you think you're invisible, you're sourcing your safety in relationship by disappearing yourself and putting all your attention on the other person.
Well, let me jump in for a moment because something I've observed as a coach is, and folks, if you're watching, this isn't just for the 60-year-old category. This is the 30, 40, 50, 16, even 70-year-old category. I noticed that when I went through my divorce at age 40, the dating marketplace was very active because the internet was relatively the Wild West at that time. People began saying to me, well, I learned what I want by what I don't want. But I want to put a thumbnail here. What I truly observed was people, for example, would write in their profile all the things they didn't want. And so the focus was what they didn't want, but they didn't really have an idea of what they really wanted to
Right.
experience. More importantly, what they wanted to experience in this space in their life. And kind of the law of attraction is if your energy, whatever the energy you put out is what you attract. So what I've observed is women in particular could keep attracting narcissists and players and bad boys and emotionally unavailable men and commitment folks because they focused on what they didn't want. And from what I'm understanding in the course that's you're offering, there's going to be more an expansion on that intention, correct?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people have actually gotten very clear about what they won't tolerate anymore, they won't settle for, and then they're
Yes.
lonely because they're not pulling in what they do want. They don't know how to create what they do want. So
Yeah.
in week 1 in preparing for love, we start with that intention. So
Okay.
in case of invisibility, you might say, my intention is to create a wonderful mutually respectful, mutually
Yes.
loving relationship where we both feel seen, we both feel heard, that we are best friends, spiritual partners, and lovers. And this relationship will be in my life by New Year's Eve. And the
Yeah.
reason I like to put that, timeline in it is because it
Yes.
kind of puts a little, "Ooh, I better get ready now. I better start, preparing for that right now." So, whether it happens or not, it's not the main goal. It's becoming who you need to be in order
Yeah.
for that to happen. So now you're just kind of playing a game, and the game is to begin to create your environment. So the first week we're redoing our home to match that environment. Maybe you get 2 nightstands instead of 1. Maybe you clean space out in your closet where that person can put their
Oh, I
things.
want to bring something up real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, only because you just mentioned the closet. I mean, weeks before I attracted Marie into my life, I had cleared out my closet, my walk-in closet. I mean, I threw out 15 garbage bags and I had quadrupled the amount of space I had before.
Wow.
So that was, and I didn't do that because of attracting someone in. It was just, I just did that because it needed to be done. But what was interesting is I had space for someone. But I want to add one more share here. You mentioned vision board. I'm a big believer in vision boards. So I had created a vision board and I had a picture of Marie Osmond in the, just because I love the hairstyle. And coincidentally, actually, I should add Linda Carter because her name was Marie, and she even had a little bit of the look to her as well.
Wow.
So, I think vision boards, it's not the literal sense, but it's a powerful experience to put in what you want and focus on it from a real heart-centered space of joy and excitement, and not necessarily from a place of lack.
Well, I like that what you're saying, that the value of the vision board, which is also part of the Preparing for Love course,
Okay.
that portion of the course. The value of creating the vision board is trying on that future. Because
Yes.
when you're visioning, you actually want to not be visioning like you're watching a movie out there. You want to be closing your eyes and imagining, what does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like when he's just fresh out of the shower and I'm smelling the shampoo in his hair? What does it sound like when we're laughing together? Or what does it smell like when he's cooking dinner for me? So you want to actually get into your body when you're visioning. And then you're going to ask the universe four questions.
Okay.
Who am I? Who am I here? I'm loved. I'm seen. I'm safe. I'm happy. I'm thrilled. I'm sexually turned on, right? So you're getting into your own experience. That's not a list of external attributes you
Yeah.
want the other person to have. You're coming at it from the inside out. That's the first question.
Okay.
Second question, what would I need to let go of in
Okay.
order to receive this into my life? And when you ask that question, like in meditation, you're going to have to let go of your attachment to your former partner. You're going to
Yeah.
have to let go of all the love letters you've been saving over the year. You're going to have to let go of smoking. You're going to have to let go of drinking every night. You're going to have to let go of your anger towards your sister. Like we just know these things intuitively. You just ask the question, it will be there. You have to learn to listen to your deeper knowing.
Do I have to let go of my pickiness?
I don't know. Do you? Like, it's not like I'm not telling you what you have to let go of. You're telling yourself.
Well, I bring that up because
Pickiness can be love avoidant behavior.
yeah, well, I was going to say, I think people, and, I'm guilty of this, but to some degree, letting go of, all the rules is really what I'm talking about when I say pickiness, all the
like what she's supposed to look like. And
yeah, well, it's not just
a little bit. I do find that there's a little bit, we have these images, but I always say, but you're not going to compromise your attraction to that person.
Yeah.
Okay. So people get scared when we say that. Like, oh,
well, because I think women are expected, particularly women are like, oh, and because they want that 6 foot tall, dark and handsome.
Yeah,
and
you are that guy, Jonathan.
Well, we're not talking about me. We're talking about the audience watching, where, the average height of a man is 5'9.5". So, I think to some degree there's, it's one thing to have a desire. It's another thing to create it as an expectation.
Yeah.
And let me be clear. I'm all in favor of, honesty, integrity, trust as expectations. I'm those aren't desires. Those are what I call bare minimums. But how that package looks, I think sometimes letting go of that and just trusting that the universe will find the person for you that fits exactly what you want anyway.
So we're making space for that person. So one of the key teaching points in Preparing for Love, so we're still on the first step, right? There's 7 steps. But there's a lot that happens with velocity, because I've worked with at least 60,000, probably 70,000 people taking them through this process. That's not
wow.
my free stuff. That's my paid courses that people have come in over the years, because I've been doing this for a while. For Calling in the One came out almost 20 years ago originally. And I rewrote it. So this is the revised edition that we're looking at today, just to clarify everything in there. But the key teaching point, I'm going to say, in week 1 is introducing this idea of self as source. And what I mean by that is to start to understand that, a lot of us understand why why the patterns are I'm attracted to this XYZ. I'm attracted to alcoholics because my father was an alcoholic, or because I'm codependent. I don't, I go with, dominating men because I'm afraid to speak up. And, so we have our psychology down, but and it's interesting to know those things, but nothing changes from those insights. So what we want to say is you're not responsible for what happened to you as a child, but you are responsible for the choices you're making and the actions you're taking as an adult. And you want to start to recognize that the patterns are happening through you and not just to you. So the first thing is, so I might say, what's your pattern with all your lovers, different size, shapes, ages, colors, whatever, income levels, but there's always some dynamic. And it might be that, I'm always somebody's, caregiver. I always end up taking care of them. Right. That's a common thing.
I hear most frequently from women, I always choose emotionally unavailable men. That's
okay. That was my thing too. Emotionally unavailable men. I had a big thing for married men when I was single years ago. Just, and and it just seemed like my fate to be living that story, because no matter what room I walked into, none of the available men looked at me and all of the married men looked up. It's just maddening and painful. Like, we're laughing right now, but it was actually painful. And unavailable men. So how am I the source of unavailable men? So I'll tell you what I discovered.
Yeah.
Okay. Inside of looking at how am I the source of this? And what the psychology is, my father left when I was 10 and it crushed me. And so I never want to get my heart hurt like that again. That's the psychology of it. But if I took responsibility for it, it's that I never I was literally choosing drama over love, because I never really wanted anyone to get close enough that they could hurt me like that again. Now I'm being responsible for that. That's my choice. I'm doing that over and over and over. I'm breaking my own heart in the process over and over and over. I'm not able to fulfill my desire to have a child, which I had wanted for years. So, when you put it like that, then you can sit with yourself and say, Catherine, sweetheart, is that worth it? Because this is costing you love. You're not 10 anymore. You were crushed when you were 10. You have a lot more tools now. You can handle it if somebody hurts you. But I don't think you can handle it to go for your whole life without love. Right? You negotiate that. So all of a sudden, when you make it conscious, like, how am I the source of this? So that gets introduced. That's a through line throughout all of Calling in the One, is personal responsibility. Because if you are able to see the specific choices you're making, the actions you're taking or not taking as an adult, you get to renegotiate those contracts, and you get to think that we are not bound to continue what I call our pseudo safety strategies that we developed when we were young and we didn't have any resources. We have a lot of resources now as adults, a lot of support, a lot of help. So that's really week one, preparing for love. So we're looking at a pretty holistic level, setting an intention, seeing the pattern, seeing ourselves as the source of that pattern, starting to live into that future.
Okay. And by the way, folks, just as a reminder, if you want to join the course, there'll be a link below to sign up for this to get the more full flavor of it. So let's dive into, and we're going to cover all the weeks really quickly. What happens in week 2?
Well, let's put week 2 and week 3 together, because now we've declared this future. And I'm going to say it's almost like Michelangelo looking at a big slab of marble saying, okay, I'm going to create David.
Okay.
And when Michelangelo talked about how he created David, and if you've never seen the statue of David in Florence, I suggest you go, because it's a wonder to behold. It's beautiful. But when she said, I just took away everything that was not David. That was the idea.
I've heard that.
Everything that was not David. So in week 2, we're looking at completing your past, because we want to untether all of the anchors that we have in the past. So that's going to be resentments, because, if you're resentful, it's probably because somebody did something that was quite a violation. You have every right to feel resentful. But where it stops love is that even if it was 97% the other person, you've got to see your 3%
Yeah.
in order to plug up that hole.
Hmm.
Not having a boundary, the not speaking your needs clearly, the not negotiating for your needs,
Yeah.
the skipping over of the red flags, the avoidance of conflict, those kinds of subtle things that
Yeah.
end up, blowing up in our face. So you've got to see your part in a dynamic, not for what happened when you were a child again, but for how that's playing out again with other people. So once you see that, you make an amends to yourself, you're on the road to trusting yourself
Yeah.
to be able to love. The other part of that is old agreements, to look at
Okay.
agreements, like what are the promises you've made along the way? Because all of our agreements serve as intentions and they're still operating. So when you were 16, I'm never going to get married like my mother and get trapped.
Oh, I see what you mean. Got it.
Okay. Or you're the great love of my life. I'll never love another man like I love you.
Hmm.
Or I'm gonna let my older sister get married first because I don't want her to be unhappy. Right.
Hmm.
So there's kind of overt agreements, things we said out loud, and then there's covert kind of contracts, loyalty contracts we have that are tethering us to the past and tethering us to being unhappily single. The
Can I
other,
dive into this for a second?
yeah,
Because we talked about a moment ago the graying divorce. I've noticed a significant percentage of people who declare, I don't want to get married again. And to some degree, and I can understand why many people might feel that way, I mean, they're especially from a financial perspective. Um, that's an old agreement, but and so is it important to replace, even let's say you don't want to get married again, what replacement would you want that, or is that further down the line in the course?
not really. I mean, I think when you're talking about the gray divorce, and
Yeah.
truthfully, many people don't want to get married because now they have children and they
Yeah.
have, they want to leave their assets to their children, and then
Yes.
it's tempting to get married because so you can have a spiritual marriage. I don't mind. Marriage is kind of a legal contract. It's a business contract. It is, I
Yeah.
think it's separate from the contract that you're making with your beloved. Michael and I are not married for that very reason. I will
Okay.
not marry. Also, Michael gets a pension from his late wife, and he
Okay.
it cost us a lot of money to get married. So it's kind of
Okay.
like, well, we don't really need to be married. We're kind of
Yeah.
married in our hearts. We are going to have a spiritual ceremony, and maybe have our friend Marianne Williamson, who's offering to
Ah.
do it. And, it's our union is quite beautiful and sacred, and we've been together 5 years now. But I am not a big advocate for the need to marry, but I am a big advocate for commitment.
Well, where I'm getting though is if there's an animus or even a resistance to marriage that might, coming back to the letting go, is that energy could be blocking just any relationship, even if it doesn't have to be a
Well, if
marriage.
you're incomplete, so you're putting up a wall.
Exactly.
That's what you're talking about. Yeah, that's what you want to look at in this. So that is what you would be looking at in the
Okay.
second week
Okay.
of the program here, because
Okay.
it's completing that relationship in a way that would leave you liberated and free to marry or not marry. So
Yeah.
you're not like sourcing the next you're not bringing the baggage of that relationship into the next relationship, which is essentially what's happening in that case scenario. The third piece of this is toxic relationships where you're actually losing personal power. And
Mm.
so that's in a relationship with, an alcoholic sibling, or maybe
Oh.
boss who's abusive with the hours, or, always yelling at you. So you have to actually, if you're really standing for the highest and the best of love, you have to be in your highest and best. You can't compartmentalize that. I'm going to be, giving my power away to my younger sister constantly and never speak the truth or never set boundaries. And then suddenly I'm going to be at my absolute finest in this relationship and negotiate and navigate it to its higher potentials. It doesn't work like that. We have to be healthy across the board. So you're getting your whole relational field lined up with the future that you're standing for.
Okay. 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 I like that. All
And then,
right, go ahead. Take us to the next step.
so week 3 has to do with transforming your core love identity, because the biggest obstacle to love, long-term love, manifesting and sustaining happy, healthy love, has to do with a core sense of self that developed when you were very young in relationship with
Yeah.
your caregivers, that you're somehow not worthy, that you're not important, that you don't matter as much as other people matter, that you're destined to be alone, that somehow you're not safe. So we all have kind of, maybe multiple core wounds, but I find that usually there's one particular identity that's getting in the way.
Okay.
Might not be there in the early stages of dating. Once you start to get a little triggered is when it's
Okay.
show up.
Okay.
That's when we go into, I'm threatened here, I'm not safe here, or see, no one was ever going to show up for me anyway. And we kind of collapse into those old stories. And then we start operating out of those old stories from the consciousness of that old story. And when we're centered, wherever we're centered at the level of identity is where we're generating our relationships from. So you'll actually set somebody up to play out that story. Now, this is where people are like crazy because they're like, oh, it's in my unconscious. This is where I'm victimized by my own psychology. I can't get rid of this. It's
That
like
was exactly where I was going to go next. I want to hear
10
about
years now.
Yeah.
So in Calling in the One, we actually have this very elegant process of being able to name it from your body, to learn how to mentor that self in your body who's holding that story, connect it with the part of you that is holding a different possible truth, the deeper truth. I know that I'm valuable. I know that I'm worthy of love. I didn't come here to be alone. I came here to love and be loved. It's within my power to grow my skill set to be able to manifest and sustain that. So there's parts of us that are holding wisdom and intelligence and development. So we have to get those two parts in relationship. And then actually what I call shifting centers, so that you're always able to do the relationships that you're in from your adult center. You still get triggered, but you're not creating the relationship from the triggered place.
Okay. So I want to jump in really quickly, because just thinking about what we've shared in the last 20 minutes, I go, wow, this is a lot of work. I mean, will I ever get there? Will I ever actually be in that space? And my point is that, I think there's a tipping point where doing individual work, taking personal responsibility, changing patterns, letting go. It's not like there's you reach this epitome at some point, you reach this pinnacle, if you will. But I feel like when you reach a tipping point, then things start to manifest in your favor. And this is just a supposition on my part, and I want your perception on it or perspective on it. It's not that you have to love yourself fully. It's just that you're in a state of loving yourself to attract love in. Does that feel?
Here's the thing, Jonathan.
Okay.
Calling in the One was created when I was in my 40s.
Okay.
And I had been a psychotherapist for years. I'd been a spiritual practitioner for decades. I'd been in therapy for 12 years. I went to landmark education for 12 years, and 12 was my thing, I guess, because I was in 12-step programs for 12 years. So what was Calling in the One is, it's almost like I've done the work for you. You actually can have this shift in 7 weeks. That's the promise of course. That's what, and I have a lot of evidence for that. A lot of people very quickly. So I know what it is to work on your issues for many years. It doesn't mean, look, and what you're pointing to is that some of the hurts that we suffered when we were young, we're always going to be healing those wounds.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm getting at.
Yeah, like, so this myth, like you have to heal all your wounds before you can have love. That's what I'm breaking up. No, Calling in the One is manifesting love now outside that story. You're getting outside the story, and you're accessing your capacity to create love from the highest and the best of who you are, not from the weakest part of who you are.
Okay. Well, let's go into, thank you for that. So let's go into the next week and the week after that.
Well, so week 4 now. Okay, so we've gotten rid of everything that we don't want.
Okay.
Week 4 is now about how to actually manifest.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this dating?
Dating, or, walking through the aisle at Whole Foods and, there he is. And, that kind of, that's like your love light is on and people are showing up and it's a whole different caliber of people. So this is where you start kind of evolve. You see evidence very quickly that you do indeed have the power to begin to attract people that are outside of your old story.
Okay.
And so the first, 3 weeks are just kind of clearing the field, clearing the space. And when we get into this part of the course, what we're doing is essentially we're doing a lot of visioning. And one of the keys to being able to manifest quickly is when you desire something, like like an of course I can have this, like the world is my oyster, everything is possible. And when you're actually centered in that part of yourself, and then you're feeling desire, it's one of the strongest magnets on the planet. It's very different than wanting something. If you break down the Latin root of to want, it's from lack, is what
Oh,
but if you break down the Latin root to the word desire,
okay.
to await what the stars will bring.
Mm.
Right. So the energy of
Can you say that one more time?
yes. So if you go back and you break down the word to want
Yeah.
something at its root, it means from lack,
Okay, got it.
coming from not having. The consciousness of wanting something is I
Okay.
don't have it. The consciousness of desire, and what the word actually means, is to await what the stars will bring. So there's this kind of delicious experience. So if we try and desire before we do the David thing where we're looking for taking away everything, but in our consciousness, we're kind of like, I can't have this. Other people can have it. I have a lot of evidence about why I can't have it. Right.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. So that's what neediness is. I want something, but I can't have it. And it's repelling. And none of us want to be needy. So then we pretend we don't have any needs at all, which is horrible because then you can't assess if somebody has the capacity to give you what you need, if you're not going to actually need something. So when you're in what I call power center, your adult center, you're worthy of love, you have the power to create it, which is where we get you by week 4. Then you can start to dream. I want to have, sexuality, like just, all in the field, a lot of eros in the field. I want to have laughter. I want to create a family with this person. I want to just swoon when they walk in the door. I want to, all the experiences. I want to be intellectually stimulated. I want to be spiritually inspired.
The word daydream comes to mind. Is it kind of daydreaming in a sense?
Maybe. I mean, I think of daydreaming. Maybe it's just how I think of it, is kind of out here up in the clouds a little bit. This is in your body.
Okay. Okay.
In your body. Remember I was talking about before, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like when we're all curled up on a Sunday morning and he's spooning me from behind and he's kissing my neck? Like, I really want it in your body, because then you're walking through the world from that center and it is powerfully magnetic. So then there's other things that we're doing in that week, which have to do with, getting you really anchored in your purpose, because you want someone who's aligned with your vision, which last time we talked about as well.
Yeah, we talked about my mission. Yeah.
Mission and what was missing in your relationship. I just saw that my battery's about to run out.
Well, we'll make it 5. Can we do it? We'll do the balance of it in the last 5 minutes.
I have 2%. Is it going to make 5 minutes?
Well, let's see where we go, and then we'll end there.
Okay. So step
let's
5,
do 5, 6, and 7 really quick.
Okay, 5, 6, and 7. 5 is about self-love.
Okay.
That's where you just learn how to just love yourself. Yeah.
Catherine Woodward Thomas right here.
And you just learn how to love yourself. You're in communion with yourself. You know what you feel. You know what you need. You're with yourself. You know how to soothe yourself. Like, you're learning all these skills. 6 And 7 is about starting to put it into practice, having the courage to show up in new ways. If you've never asked for what you need, to learn to just be overt about that, to take the risk to show up differently, to be able to hold the high watch for love, to bounce back in the face of disappointments, because it's all food for growth. So you have a new relationship to disappointments, and you're holding space for the unimagined to show up.
So I know you're going to run out of battery, and folks, if she all of a sudden disappears, we're grateful for the time that you've shared with us. Everyone, I want you to know something. Catherine is not just a dear friend, but I truly value her work. I want to share with you, Catherine, some of what you teach kind of mirrors what I do in my own work, for my clientele. And I noticed that there was this mirroring, because I think there's a universal truth. Truth, is that when a person has let go of the past, they've done the inner work, they're loving on themselves, they create a vision of what they want, they do all this uncluttering, if you will, and really stand in your power. I believe we all have a capacity to attract in, a high quality person. By the way, Catherine just disappeared, everyone. So really quickly, she's back. She's back. Oops. So everyone, first off, now that Catherine's back, I want to thank you for, joining us today. This has been a real treat to have you on. If you want to join the course with me, there's a link below to join the course. It starts in a couple days, so check it out. I think you'll get a great amount of value from it. Also, I highly recommend checking out the book, Calling in the One, which there's a link below to get a copy of this book as well. So if you found value in this video, please do me a favor. Please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. And also, if you have some thoughts or you'd like to share, just post a comment below. I'd like to read them all. And I'll also include a link for you to sign up for the course as well. All right, I'm going to sign off this video as I always do. First off, giving myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love, if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. And once again, I want to thank Catherine for being in the house. And what an abrupt ending, but I hope you found value from the 40+ minutes that we were on. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye now.